Welcome to the NAHA webinar brought to you by the National Association for Holistic Aromatherapy. To learn more about NAHA, please visit www.naha.org. Today's presentation topic is Understanding the Benefits of Essential Oil Chemistry and Implementing Them for More Efficient Blending Choices. This educational webinar is being presented by Melani Kovac. Melani is an aromatherapist and the founder of Dropsmith. She has devoted the last 10 years solely to promoting aromatherapy by writing popular and professional articles, public lectures, and introducing aromatherapy to a wider public on TV and more. To serve this purpose, she has founded Aroma Institute. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. Can you say that for us there?
Aroma Institute.
Okay, great. Through which she organizes and supports different aromatherapy projects and collaborates with colleagues, nonprofit organizations, hospitals, and universities. To work as an educator as well as collaborator with distillers, sellers, nurses, and scientists, she has inspired her to create a great global online platform for all essential oil users and sellers, Dropsmith. Her motto is win-win for all, and the goal is to make aromatherapy simple, fun, and as precise and safe as possible. To learn more about Melani, please visit her website at www.dropsmith.com. And I'd like to just take a moment and welcome Melani for being here this Saturday afternoon, all the way from Slovenia. Thank you so much. And I know our members are going to love this presentation. Not only will give them another tool for their toolbox, but to hear how you created this wonderful platform that all aromatherapists can benefit from. And we're going to get a sneak peek on it. That's very exciting. So thank you very much. And you can go ahead and get started.
Thank you, Kelly, for inviting me and for the wonderful introduction. And I'm very excited to be with you today and to also perhaps take this chance to wish everybody a Happy New Year. It's a bit late, but still January. Today I will talk about essential oil chemistry and how we can use that in our practice. And how I got into chemistry is a bit of a long story, but to make it short, I was asked to teach pharmacists as an aromatherapist here in Slovenia, and as I was one of the first people who introduced education, systematic education on aromatherapy, they asked me to also teach pharmacists. So I had about half a year to prepare, and I really started to study chemistry and pharmacology and pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamics, and get deeper and deeper into that. Not just the half year I was preparing for it, but then that continued for many years, and all of that then inspired me to create Dropsmith. So let's get started. And the fascinating thing for me with essential oils and the chemistry of the essential oils is that that plants make hundreds of different molecules and chemical elements from air, water, and earth. So just from these things, and mainly essential oils consist of only 3 elements of carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen. We can sometimes find different, like some nitro compounds and things like that, but mainly it's just these 3 elements that then create literally thousands of different molecules. And that's what's really magic for me, as in what nature can do. As you all know, essential oils are highly complex because they do have a combination of somewhere between 30 to 300 or more chemical components inside of them. So they are quite complex, and it's good to consider that when we are using them. To make it easier for us to understand in aromatherapy, what we usually do is we classify these chemical components into different classes. Usually in aromatherapy, we look at their size and the functional groups. So here on the left, where you see hydrocarbons, alcohols, aldehydes, ketones, that's their functional group. And the size would be monoterpene alcohol, sesquiterpene alcohols, as you see, diterpene alcohol. That kind of tells us the size of the molecule. And that can somehow sometimes help us determine their volatility, reactivity, as well as entry into the body, some possible therapeutic and toxic effects. So this is kind of an introduction into how chemistry can be useful to, I wouldn't go so far as to predict some things, but to watch out on some things that repeat themselves. I will not go into functional groups and what they are, because you probably all know that and you can get that information at some other school. But I will try to take that information that you probably heard of or can find information on and put it into context, into how you can use this information on in your daily use of essential oils and aromatherapy. So how do you choose essential oils and or oils that we are going to blend with? Well, what I noticed with my students and when they do their research and their practical part is that when they make great blends or choose oils that are efficient, it is usually because they have a really clear goal, so they don't really complicate it. With essential oils, we tend to want to do more things at once because they are so they're so rich in what we can do with them. So we tend to want to help with, for example, pain and to relax, and perhaps something else as well. But then it's hard to measure and it's hard to follow up. So my experience and experience of my students is, if you choose just one goal and stick to it, then that will be quite efficient. So that's just one tip that I learned over the years. But how we go about choosing essential oils can be for different reasons, choosing them for a certain effect, of course, considering their safety. Sometimes we choose oils just for the pleasant smell, especially in perfumery, or for marketing. What I noticed is that some people who create their own products, they might be trendy, whether it's helichrysum or something that's rare or local. Perhaps your story is about the story of the local plants, and that's what you want to bring out in your product. But what happens is when you use these rare oils is that we don't really have a lot of information of that. Sometimes we don't have any at all. So now I'm going to show you. Here on the left, you can see I showed magnolia leaf, but I'm going to show you a little bit in Dropsmith how that works and why I was inspired to create it. So here I prepared for you whole wood. So this is one of the things that can come up as a question, you know, because we have a lot of different cinnamomum camphora essential oils, and they have different chemotypes. So these properties here are the scientific properties that my team found on cinnamomum camphora, but these ones were on whole wood, and we could actually find that it was on this particular chemotype. The other ones, research that we found was not specified to which essential oil was it. Was it whole wood, or was it perhaps camphor, or which chemotype it was? So we weren't really sure of using. And this is one problem that you might find confusing as well. So for this oil, we just have several things, little bit of things that we can use. But if we look at the chemical component, you will find that it's mainly made out of linalool. And for linalool as a chemical component, we found a lot more information. So this is kind of the logic that I use when I choose my oils. But let me show you a few other examples. So this is a tangerine. And this is, you would think that we would have more information on it, but not really. We just found that it was antibacterial. This is the classical aromatherapeutic application. Also not too many things written on it. But again, we have safety, of course, for tangerine, we found safety. But then again, if you look at the chemical components, it is mainly limonene, and on limonene again, it's quite a popular chemical component and researched, and we have a lot to work with here. And then we have things like magnolia leaf, which we found no properties scientifically based at all. We found some application, really little bit. Luckily, found safety as well. But see, again, if we look at chemical components, this one is mainly made up of linalool. And again, linalool, we have quite a lot of information. Another thing I would like to point out is when I started thinking like this, choosing essential oils, also considering their chemical components, this part is the GCMS that we put into functional groups and their sizes as well. But we searched for properties of their chemical components and then added them up. So see here, when you see antibacterial, 90%, that means that all these chemical components that are in this specific magnolia leaf actually are found to be antibacterial. So my wish was to find out what can we do with this oil that we still don't know, and maybe that can inspire us to look further. Okay, so let's come back to the slides. So as you see, these oils, if they're rare, they're usually limited information on how to use essential oils. But then we can look perhaps at the most dominant chemical component and see if that can tell us how we perhaps can use this essential oil efficiently. And as I said, when I go about choosing essential oil, first I look at the, if you look here on the left, I chose peppermint because peppermint is quite researched. So properties are the scientifically based properties, and here we have quite a lot for peppermint. Application, I feel it's hands-on experience, the traditional use, the practical experience we get from, for example, aromatherapy journals, and then I consider both. So I consider the scientifically proven properties and the hands-on experience and the traditional use of aromatherapy, because I found with the scientific properties, we usually have just antimicrobial properties or antioxidant, perhaps some relaxant, quite a lot of research on repellents as well, but that's where it kind of stops. But I might be interested in how to use this on a particular type of skin or emotion, and that we can only know with experience and practical use. Of course, safety. I don't think I need to talk about that too much. We really need to be safe on how we use essential oils and know when is it appropriate. So at the end, you might choose an oil that is not as strong. For example, cinnamon essential oil is a great antimicrobial, but do you really want to use it because it can also sensitize your skin, and you might actually do more damage than good. So the next thing I do is, as I said, I look at the properties of the dominant chemical components. And the interesting thing is that these components really, some of them repeat themselves in many essential oils, in hundreds of essential oils. So for example, pinenes are almost in every oil, or cineole is in like at least 200 different oils, linalool. So these basic chemical compounds that are very well researched, it's it's good to know about them and to check out how they affect our essential oils. And what I like to do is like to compare them and see if there are any patterns. That's also fun, and I might have time to show you as well. One thing I would love to point out is that we cannot predict synergy completely. So if I go back to my slide here, and I said magnolia leaf 92% antibacterial, that is the best we can do, because synergy might not work 1 + 1 + 1. It can sometimes mean 1 + 1 is 2, 1 + 1 is 5, or it can add up, but it doesn't have to. We are not sure yet how the synergy actually works. It's the wonder of nature. But this is quite accurate. So for example, if you have over 75% of linalool, it's quite a good chance that you can use it as an analgesic, for example, that this oil will be useful for that as well. Next thing I wanted to show you is how this can be useful as well. There is another interesting oil. So this is cineole, but a very interesting chemotype. And as you can see, the safety as well as some properties are usually determined by the dominant components. So here you can have a little bit more information on what this I would like to just point out here, because I'm very, I can say, proud of this. We actually included for you which bacteria it is active on if we found that information. Or, for example, repellent. It's really great if you know if it repels mosquitoes or it repels mice. It's not the same thing. So we wanted to give you as much information as possible. Also, everything's referenced, so please go check out the article if that was done on humans or mice or whatever, if this is actually relevant information for you or not. But let me show you here. I compared a few oils just to show you why is it so important that we take a look at chemistry. And here I have 4 different salvia species, and as you can see just by colors, they are very different chemical-wise. And these are their scientifically proven properties, application, and here you go, safety. So this is what I wanted to point out. Safety is also quite often determined by the most dominant chemotype. So here, as you see, with white sage, it is 1,8 cineole that is dominant, and then that's why we consider that when applying to children, for example. And here with Salvia officinalis, because of not just camphor, but we have tugenol as well. I'm sorry, it's late here, so I have to help myself with Dropsmith. So that's why we can have some neurotoxic effect, and be careful with the dosage. So this is a really cool way to compare oils so that you can quickly find why some things are better than others for certain clients, for example. If it's a child, I would not use this, but if it's an older person, this might be just fine. And maybe you noticed here with the white sage, we do not have any application or properties because it was not researched. But then again, see, this is really interesting, because what would you do with an oil like this? And this is why I insist on looking at the chemical components again, because okay, there's quite a lot of cineole, but there's also quite a lot of pinenes and monoterpenes. So if I was to look just at cineole, I would get not even 70% of, well, that's still quite significant, but what to do with it. But here we add up. So anti-inflammatory, you see it's over 95% of different chemical components in this specific essential oil that are anti-inflammatory. So this would give us a really good heads up what to do with this oil. That was my intention with Dropsmith, to give you an idea what to do with the oils that you have, and hopefully inspire researchers as well to look further into that. So if you want to have fun, I encourage you to go and to search for things like look at different eucalyptuses. So see and then compare what their safety is, what their use is, because let me show you a little bit more. Because it's quite fascinating. We know these things, but when you see them right next to each other, it's much easier for me to teach, for example, to put eucalyptus dives and Citriodora and radiata right next to each other, and then it just makes it much more easier for my students to understand what I want to do. So let's go back to the slides if I missed something. Yes, safety. So safety is very important, as I hope you all agree, because it determines if we're going to use it or not, if it's appropriate or not, at which dose, for who is it appropriate. And for example, what I like to do is with my student is to compare the phototoxicity of the citruses, so that you can, let me just show you here, you can write citrus. It's slow now because so many of you are here. And then I can compare, for example, lemon oil to bergamot to orange and mandarin, for example. And just to show you, you would quickly see which one would be most appropriate for summertime, for example. See here at which percentage it is phototoxic or not. So this is what I wanted to do for my students, to make things easier for them to find appropriate oil for their clients, for themselves, for their families, to be safe. Safety is very important. And as I said, once again, it is usually in correlation to the specific chemical component, and that's why I always teach from chemistry, although of course essential oils are much more than just a bunch of chemical components put together. So let's go. How are we doing with time? Okay. When is this useful? As I showed you, I compared a few sages and eucalyptus species. It's really fun to, for example, compare different chemotypes and what does that mean for the oil. You can, for example, I think we have over 15 different times, not just species, but also chemotypes. You'd be surprised. And it really helps you choose the most appropriate oil for your client, so you can feel safe that your choice was the right one. I also encourage you to continue exploring, to also look at the same essential oils. For example, a lemon, if you compare different batches, they pretty much look the same, but try comparing helichrysum, for example. Let me show you just, or yarrow. It's mind-boggling for me, actually. As you can see, I'm a total nerd when it comes to chemistry. So let me show you yarrow. See how very different they are chemically. It is just fascinating for me. Helichrysum. See, look how very, very different they are, depending, not just depending on where they are, but how they're distilled. It just gives you a completely different outlook on essential oils and appreciation as well. And of course, it raises many new questions, but we need to expand further than what we know right now. That's my opinion. So again, how do we choose these oils? And as I said, I I encourage you to look first for the properties and application of the oil itself, but then to the components. And let me show you how this can be useful in a real life situation. So let's say you are looking for an essential oil for wounds. So here I'm going to write wounds. And we have, see, almost 250 essential oils that are associated with wounds. So this is quite common, but I know for sure that if we look at a geranium essential oil, we do have actual research that supports that. So research has found that geranium essential oil enhances wound healing, and more than one research. Also, if you look at the association of skin and geranium essential oil, you will see that it is very useful for all kinds of skin, and of course wounds as well. Here we'll find wounds. Here. Quite a lot of authors suggesting geranium for wounds. But here I'm going to show you an example of sweet orange, which is an essential oils that probably all of us have in our own collection. So this oil has quite a lot of research and application. But if I search for wounds, I will not find it where I expected it here as an application of the oil, although it does have quite for skin, see, for all types of skin, dry skin, irritated skin, it is recommended for skin, but not wounds. But we found it down here with the chemical components, because if you look, limonene makes up 95% of the oil, and limonene, if you look at the many usages of the component, one of them is wound healing. So this is what I'm trying to show you, the usefulness of chemical components. This one you have in your cupboard for sure, and it and you will not find that in books or in aromatherapy journals, at least we didn't find, or in the scientific properties. So this is something that can really benefit and open your eyes and bring you a new perspective on choosing essential oils. Just give you more choice. I like choice. And also, if you remember, limonene is in almost every citrus, so you would probably be able to apply this to tangerine or other citruses as well. So now I would like to move forward to synergies and how I use them, some synergies that I found. And before I made Dropsmith, I used to draw these circles for my students. So I drew over 100 every year by hand because I would want new batches for my students. So this is how I notice certain patterns and why I love chemistry. And here I wanted to show you the combination of limonene, linalool, and linalool acetate. So you probably all heard about linalool and acetate combination because one is connected to another. But I noticed that it works really well with limonene as well. And I will show you here. I prepared a little table for you, and you can get that in the handout because I like everything nice and neat. And this research is all from Dropsmith, and I put it together for you so it's easier to follow. And as you can see, a lot of things repeat themselves. And this synergy is, I see, quite effective in many ways. So I usually use this synergy when I want to help with pain, whether it's emotional pain or physical pain. As you see, there are quite a few great properties for that. And this is all scientifically based research. So let me show you how you can look this up in Dropsmith as well. So we're looking at limonene, linalool, and linalool acetate. And So I'm going backwards. I'm not looking for an oil. I am looking for chemical components. And here you in the catalog you have a filter and chemical components. So here I will look for linalool at any percentage, so from 0 to 100, or I can make it, for example, from 2 to 100, or whatever you need. So linalool. Oh, sorry. It's 8 p.m. here. Here it is, linalool acetate and limonene. And see, I got 125 oils with this combination. I could change it, for example, that I want at least 10% of limonene or 13, and then see how that changes. See, now it's only 25. But just to show you, with any kind of combination, we have 125 essential oils. So this will give you a lot more space to work with and a lot more ideas on which oils to choose for this combination for these purposes that you might be interested in. So I hope you're enjoying this. I don't hear you and have no feedback, so I'm just hoping that this is useful for you as it is for me. And
well, Melanie, I'm here. I'm loving it, and I'm sure everybody else is. I'm really impressed with your database and the amount of information that's in there that's accessible to take blending to a different level. So we're really absorbing it all.
thank you.
So
Sometimes it's very strange to talk to yourself, you know.
well, we're all listening intently, so please continue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Kelly. So when do I use this information? You know, when we start with essential oils and aromatherapy, I think, at least from my experience, we all fall in love with them and we want all of them everywhere, and we blend them all together, and the more the merrier. But the longer I use them, I must say, not so much less I use them, but more wisely, and less as in less blending. And when is, for example, a single essential oil more useful than a blend, or when do I go for the blend instead of the single essential oil? So I wanted to show you an example. Excuse me. So here I made 2 blends and neroli. So if I'm going for neroli smell and neroli as an for anxiety, I think I would just use neroli because it's you can't beat that, I guess. It's really specific essential oil. But if I'm going for the main chemical components here, and I pointed them out, as you see, it's a beta-pinene, limonene, linalool, and linalool acetate. See that combination we just talked about. Then I can get those in my blends. And why is that important? I work with a lot of nurses in palliative care, and here they tend not to have a lot of resources as financial. So it might be, if they want a certain effect, it might be cheaper for them to try and target these chemical components instead of using neroli, because and saving neroli just for that special case. So as you see on the blend number 1, I actually managed to get more lemon and then linalool and linalool acetate in the blend than in actual neroli. And on blend 2, I concentrated on all 4 chemical components, and again got even more than the essential oil itself. But here I'd like to really point out, it depends on what you want. Are you going for that synergy of the chemical components, the main ones, or are you going for neroli as an oil, as a very specific usage of the oil, which has, of course, much more chemical components than the 4 we are targeting? And here I will show you in Dropsmith how that looks like. So here's our neroli and its properties and safety. And of course, it's far more complex than just the four chemical components we are looking at. So just wanted to make sure you see that. And what the blend does is it, of course, creates the GCMS of the essential oil you used. So you can kind of target and play with drops or milliliters or whatever you're using to create the perfect or the wanted structure of the chemical components. Another thing I wanted it to do for you is to remind you what else it's useful for. So, you know, it's also used for acne, this, because clear sage and orange are used for that in that percentage, for digestive conditions, for relaxation, you know, and it tells you which oils, for example, all three are found to be effective on insects. So when you make a blend, and this is the second blend, it will actually take what you're using and give you other ideas what to do with it. And another idea behind that was to save you money. For my colleagues that, for example, are also massage therapists, they can use the blend then for far more purposes than they thought when they created it. So this was the idea behind showing you what your blend can actually do. Oh, sorry. So let's go back. So this is how I look at it. Sometimes a single essential oil is more powerful itself than the blend, and vice versa. Another interesting synergy I found repeating is camphor and 1,8-cineole. So we all know that rosemary has camphor and 1,8-cineole, and that's why it is also great for respiratory system, because they both support that. Here I could also add alpha-pinene, for example. It's quite a common combination, camphor, 1,8-cineole, and alpha-pinene if we want it for the respiratory system. And here is the table for that. Again, you will get this in the handout, so you can look at it yourself. Here I added menthol, because once I did the table for the 1,8-cineole and camphor, it just looked very familiar with menthol as well. And as you can see, not only do they have the typical anti-inflammatory and, you know, antimicrobial effect that we expected, they have the cooling effect, the receptor stimulating, the antitussive. So some things that are rare but are in all three of these chemical components. So this would be a really powerful blend for a respiratory system. Just be careful, of course, you will not use this on children. And while I'm showing you this, let's go back to when it could be more useful, a single essential oil, then when are you actually diluting the effects of the single essential oil when blending. And this I found in case of rosemary. So let's find rosemary. And rosemary is a fun oil because you can play with all the chemotypes, but let's just take cineole. So see, rosemary already has a beautiful blend of alpha-pinene, which has a lot of great stuff we can use for respiratory system, for example, or respiratory infections, and see works against all of this bacteria. Then it also has quite a chunk of camphor, which again, see, if you would scroll, you would see that it's actually quite good. See here for stimulate cold receptors in the nose, for decongestion, for example, and in combination again with 1,8-cineole, that is also, as you all know, great for many respiratory problems. So here in our rosemary, an oil also that we probably all have in our cupboard, we already have a beautiful synergy going on. So if I would blend rosemary with, for example, Eucalyptus globulus, which has more cineole, I would actually be diluting this beautiful blend. I hope you follow. I would just be adding more of cineole, which I already have in this beautiful oil. So what I usually do is I just use rosemary for respiratory system. I do not blend it with anything else because I just feel I would dilute it and make it less efficient, actually. On the contrary, if I use Eucalyptus globulus, let's find that one. Here. I have, see here, I have the pinene and I have the 1,8 cineole. So I might want to add something else. This is strong enough, as you all know, but I might want it more complex than that for my respiratory system. And let me just show you oil I like to use instead. Maybe because it's local. I love myrtle. See? Because I do have a whole bunch of 1,8 cineole in here, which is enough, especially for children. It's more than enough. But I also have pinene and a lot of other stuff that I found interesting. And if you look here, it is really great for many bacteria, fungi, antimicrobial, great. And you will see that, of course, it's for coughs and for all kinds of respiratory conditions here. See? So just review your options and see how synergy actually works together. Some chemical components really complement each other, some don't. So it's nice to be aware of these, especially because as you see, cineole and pinene, it really comes up in almost every essential oil. So when is this useful? To make really the most efficient choice, not to use oils if we don't need them. Another reason I'd like to point that out and why I made Dropsmith is the ecological standard point of view. If we use less oils and are more efficient because we know what we are doing, then we are not using as much oils. Not only are we saving money, but we are saving the plants. We do not want to use it if we do not need it. Also, it's recognizing that less is more because you understand why you do not need more than that. And you also understand why your essential oil is so efficient. And by knowing the properties of the chemical components, you also see that your oil might be even more efficient than you thought, and you appreciate it more. I just see that chemistry supports essential oils even in appreciating the wonder of nature as well, because we see how complex and beautiful it is through that, and it helps us appreciate the whole aromatherapy from beginning to end even more, in my opinion. And of course, it will help you make the intelligent choice with safety recommendations, and you might understand better why that is really needed in that specific dose. So I'm actually coming to an end, and with my lectures, when I talk so much about chemical components and how to use them and think about this and that component, a lot of times my students get kind of afraid even, and well, don't, please, because it takes time and everything you learn is useful in some way. It's just putting it together. It takes some time, it takes practice, it takes really looking into your oils, understanding them, wanting more and more information, and just have fun with it. And putting it together is quite challenging, but it's very rewarding. And take it one step at a time. So that is kind of my advice. So thank you, Kelly. Thank you, NAHA, for inviting me, and I hope to see you at the conference in real life, so I can get your feedback. This is my information where you can reach me, and I hope we can have more questions now.
Thank,
So
thank you so much, Melanie. I'm sitting here in awe of and a new appreciation for pie charts and and that you drew probably hundreds you say, but maybe even up in the thousands for your students over the years,
I did.
and
Yeah.
to see the database and how you put this all together, and you can really feel your passion for the chemistry, but just to be able for anybody, whether they're new to aromatherapy, whether a veteran or a practitioner, to go and have that database to be able to easily search for things and like that, it's just amazing. I mean, I'm still looking at it going, wow, that's, you really are passionate about it. And I could feel that. So we definitely appreciate you sharing the importance of how chemistry can play an important role, of course, in our blending, and then how you have these tools available too. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for letting me express myself.
Well, we appreciate it, and we're so looking forward to seeing you at the conference too. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, but I just wanted to thank you again. So
Thank you, everyone. Good night.